Go this way. All right. So a strong suit per landmark education is your one of your greatest strengths, okay, that can also hold you back. All right. So like it's kind of like it has its shadow side, right? It's a strength, but then like where's the darker side of it? And we're gonna talk about this, but when we go through which I want you guys to have, we're gonna go through an exercise today, but hopefully it'll get some things going in terms of some food for thought for I'm really understanding like the core of them because that's a whole different level of awareness. And so what do I during this my goal today is that you uncover at least one of your strengths, its opposite side, and what to do with it, right? Because strength plus awareness plus a choice is a freaking superpower, okay? And then a strength plus overuse plus autopilot because you just go into it could be a limitation, all right, because you don't have full control of what's happening. And so I'm going to walk you guys through an exercise to identify something for yourself and get things going. But we're going to talk about the strong suit itself. For instance, like my work ethic, like that's one of my strengths. All right. And so people have different, whether it's like being disciplined. And so the positive is that you can stay consistent, you can stay focused, right? That was definitely a big thing for me. But on the negative, for some people, it could be where they become really rigid or like unable to rest, like they're just always going. Let's say somebody who's loyal and they're great at building great relationships. The dark side could be that they stay too long in unhealthy relationships, someone who's confident, courageous, and decisive, you can also sometimes be dismissive or arrogant, seem arrogant to people when you're just, confident. And so knowing like, okay, you're responsible, you're dependable, you're trustworthy. All right, well, you could also become controlling or just overwhelmed because you're the one that has to take care of everything. Okay. Well, most like when they define in landmark strong suits, they talk about and define it as like these are like they're not just strengths, right? The first thing is that it's a strength, but it also has like the shadow side, right? Where when it's overused or an autopilot, it can become something not so great. But the second part that they said that this makes it the quote unquote what they define as a strong suit is that it was actually like there's a defining moment in your life as to when this happened. Okay. So I'm going to talk about that more at the end. But I want everyone to like today, like as we discover this stuff and we dig into some of this like self-awareness, because it's really where your full power comes from. This isn't about discovering like what's wrong with you. I want to make sure everyone knows that. It's about discovering what's like absolutely incredibly right with you. And how something that's helped you succeed can sometimes be the exact thing that can take you down, all right, or gets in your way. And so it's important to know that. Everybody in this room has qualities that people can count on, right? And so, like, for some people, it is responsibility. Maybe you're the funny one, maybe you're the person that gets things done, maybe you're calm, maybe you're caring, maybe you're independent, positive, competitive, confident, loyal, organized, or you're easygoing. Most, these qualities are gifts. But again, almost every gift has a shadow side. So let me ask you this. Raise your hand if one of your strengths has ever gotten you in trouble. Raise your hand. Like I can think of like I'm persistent. Well, I definitely like won't let down, like in an argument or with a teacher, like, well, no, I got to show why I'm right, or and like that got me in trouble. What could you think of?
I'm very like, hold on, come back to me.
All right. Anybody like a specific thing that you can think of where it's like this was my strength? Like I would assume for Dawson, it's like he's goofy and funny and speaks too much, and he probably got in trouble in class or kicked out. What are you gonna say? Always having you prove to you right. So it's like you're super smart, you're super intellectual, but then sometimes that can like even push some people away because it's like you have to like always, say why you're right. That's a great one. All right. Anybody else that you can think of a specific thing? Well, you gonna. All right, we're gonna go. But yeah, maybe you're helpful, but then that, became overwhelmed because you couldn't say no to people anymore. That happens to a lot of
Yeah.
people. Maybe you're easygoing, but you avoided that conversation that needed to happen because you don't like confrontation. Maybe you're independent, but then you wait too long to ask for help when you truly need it. Maybe you're driven, but nothing ever feels like enough. All right, that was for a long time in my life. And so the strength isn't bad. It's just simply being used without awareness. All right. And so we're all going to grab a partner. And each of you will have 1 minute to answer this question. And by the way, you guys do too much. I'm going to have you guys partner. I'm going to have you guys partner. I'm going to have you guys partner. All right. We're switching it up. Bless you. And so I want you guys to answer first. What is one positive quality, all right, that people can almost always count on you to bring, all right? Don't be humble. This isn't bragging. This is just awareness. And so each of you is just going to have a minute, but I want you to identify like what is one positive quality of yours that people can always count on. Like Kathy's always blank or so and so. Like they know that this is like part of you. Like you're always going to get stuff done, or you're always going to bring the party, or you're always going to whatever it is. But what is one strength? So I'm going to pause right here. So yeah, anybody willing to share really quick what your partner said?
Doesn't take things, it doesn't take a lot of things super seriously.
Okay. What's the shadow side of that? Or what's the good part? What's the so like can just keep going like more carefree?
Yeah, I think it's school and band and how sometimes when they're at events, like his unseriousness can be helpful to like relieve people's pressure. But the downside of that is like there's a time and a place. And so if he's taking the wrong thing, then so he's be like, I could just come off with that way.
Right. Absolutely. Great identification. Who else? Anybody else want to share one?
We're doing the strengths and weaknesses thing.
Um, uh, yeah, so a strong suit is a quality or behavior, or a way of being that's helped you succeed. It's helped you get through a certain part of your life. Okay. It may have helped you receive attention, approval, recognition. Safety is a big one for people. It might have helped you gain friendship, achievement, or a sense of belonging. Okay. And so because it worked, you kept using it. And so eventually it became something more than something that you do. It became part of your identity. All right. And so you started thinking like, oh, I'm the responsible one, or I'm the strong one, or I'm the funny one, or I'm the one that keeps the peace, or I'm the one that doesn't need help, or I'm the one who always wins, or I'm the one who can, everyone can depend on. And there's nothing wrong with those qualities. All right. It's just, it becomes a different level, and it could be negative pressure when you believe you have to always be that person. And so a strength is like the volume on a speaker at the right level. It's super powerful. Turn too low, people may not hear it. Turn too high, it can become distorted. All right. And so the goal is not to shut off your strength. The goal is to develop the ability to adjust the volume, and being aware of what it is. And when you can figure out where it came from, there's a different level of power that you have. All right. And so when we say this carefree or independent, like I had to really think back, and with some of my strong suits when I was at this event, I ended up figuring out where, okay, my independence, my work ethic, and my leadership skills. Those were like three of my very strong traits. And it was like, okay, and after going through stuff, where did it come from? Well, my leadership skills, I didn't realize were came from when I was like 7 and got my ass beat after calling my sister a cockroach. Okay. And my father was like, hey, you're the oldest of four. I need you to be a leader. Da, da, da. And from then on, because I remember thinking, well, I was always a hard worker, but it wasn't like when I was in elementary school or middle school, I was like, I'm going to go work hard. Like I was just trying to be a leader. I worked hard to get good grades so I could be a good example for my sisters and my brother. That was more of why I was working so hard. It's like I just wanted to be a really good example. And so that came from that talk in
Wow.
second grade. It's not like I was born out the womb and I'm like, I just want to be a good leader. Like something happened that made what, I want to do this, or like you chose consciously or subconsciously, you started acting in this way. And again, like we said, it produced some level of approval or attention or recognition or safety. for you. All right. And but thinking about it, and then it was like, okay, my then my work ethic, it was more like my sophomore year, I was expelled from my high school and I had to finish the last 3 months by myself. And so like the discipline and my work ethic of like having to keep up with everybody when I wasn't in the school anymore. And I basically homeschooled myself. And so that's really where I'm like, oh, that's where my, work ethic really I feel was defined, where I felt like, okay, I can work hard, I can have discipline. And maybe more it's the discipline, that being the strength of like very self-discipline came during that time. I wasn't always self-disciplined. I did whatever the hell. I was just like a kid running around. But it was in that time in my sophomore year of high school where I feel like my self-discipline had to kick in. Like I couldn't survive if it didn't. If I didn't get my stuff done, I was going to get held back, you know? And so that was a really important thing. And then my independence came from another situation that wasn't fun. I got arrested my senior year and expelled again. And that was in the middle of my senior year. And at that point, it was like, okay, what am I, like, it was more of a, excuse me, embarrassment, an embarrassment to face people of like, are you kidding me? And by the way, I was valedictorian of my senior class. I was the captain of the basketball team, the captain of the volleyball, the president of the National Honor Society. And so this was a big deal. I was like a trouble child. I was like the head of everything, led the praise and worship at my Christian high school, like all the things. And here I was getting into trouble again, which my mom was always like, you always find a way to fuck things up. Oh, this might get erased from YouTube because I cussed. It's all right. We don't need it there. But this was something that really, it was very embarrassing to say the least. Okay. And so my independence, my true independence really came from like having to figure it out, but like not feeling like I could show my face, And so I did everything like kind of on my own. I was working hard to finish up, whole other set of stories, but thank you, Jesus, for like providing and like put me in. I was able to transfer to the public school. And the dean of my school went to my church and was a deacon with my dad. And so he's like, I don't want to mess everything up for Kat. We have stricter rules than obviously the public school would have or whatever. But like, he's like, and he basically said, we're just gonna put on her transcript that she needed more AP classes because I was already the valedictorian and that they didn't offer what I needed. And so I transferred to the public school to take 4 AP classes. And so on my transcript, it never showed that like I was arrested or expelled. And that was a huge blessing because I would have lost my full ride pretty much that I had for school. And they knew that and they knew our family situation and they're like, we want to help, and because of that time, it's like I became super independent. But I also like, working on my own and getting my stuff done, I alienated a lot of people and that became something really negative, in my life. And so that's one of them. Like when you're independent, you're resourceful, you're capable, but the dark side is you can be isolated or unwilling to ask for help, and that's very true for me. Think about if you're caring, you're able to make people feel valued, but the negative is that you can become a people pleaser, or someone who has to rescue all the time. Maybe you are competitive, and so it's good, you raise standards, but the negative side is that you can't ever enjoy the process or you're constantly comparing yourself or like, like there's this like almost this anxiety that can build there. If you're funny, bring joy and connection, but the big thing with the funny people I've always seen is that they avoid humor. They use humor, sorry, to avoid vulnerability, right? And so they hide behind that. Josh, the other day when we were in there, you're like, oh my gosh, can you psychoanalyze me? And I'm like, it just comes from this is more my training with strong suits and knowing like when someone's super like out there goofy and funny, like a lot of times, the other side of it is that they're really, they don't feel as seen, they're not as open, they don't really share their true colors or their true self, because they stay away from vulnerability, because they use humor to avoid it, and so I can see certain things that are stronger, if you're someone who's analytical, all right, right? That's a positive thing. We got some of you up in here with that. And so you might make really thoughtful decisions. But the issue here is you also can overthink and delay action. All right. And so analysis paralysis. that happens to a lot of analytical minds, all right? And they're not able to get as much done because they're just over analyzing. And so that actually holds them back. So your strong suit, like these are things that, again, you don't need to eliminate, but we want to become responsible for. And so I want you guys to write these questions down, all right? So you can think about this. I'm going to give you several questions. Actually, just write down whatever comes to mind. Don't try to create the perfect answer, all right? And so number one is, what positive quality do people regularly compliment me on, right? You guys were already talking about this. Maybe you pick a different one after me talking, something else came to mind. But what positive quality do people regularly compliment me on? All right. What role do I naturally play in my family or friend group? What role do I naturally play in my family or friend group? All right. What role do I naturally play in my family or friend group? Number three, when something goes wrong, what do people expect me to do? When something goes wrong, what do people expect me to do? Is it rise to the occasion? Is it hide? Does it break down? Does it make it a joke? When something goes wrong, what do people expect me to do? All right, so when something goes wrong, what do people expect me to do? Number four is, what quality has helped me succeed in school, work, sports, friendships, or life? All right. What quality has helped me succeed in school, work, sports, friendships, or life? And number five, what part of myself do I feel pressure to maintain? What part of myself do I feel pressure to maintain? And I want you guys to look at your list or your things you wrote and circle the quality that appears most often. And this may be your primary strong suit. Things like responsible, driven, strong, caring, independent, confident, competitive, positive, funny, loyal, adaptable, calm, helpful, disciplined, intelligent, organized, direct, friendly, protective, easygoing. Your strong suit should feel like something you're proud of. It may also feel like something you'd be nervous to stop doing. All right, you guys all have something identified? So I want to find the shadow side. So we're going to look at the shadow side. So this is what happens when your strong suit becomes automatic or excessive or inappropriate for the situation, right? This isn't an opportunity to criticize yourself. It's an opportunity to understand yourself. So I want you guys to write down, when does my strength stop serving me? When does my strength stop serving me? Go ahead and answer that question. When does my strength stop serving me? All right. And I'm going to put a list of questions that I want you guys to go through again. This is just helping with this awareness process, all right? Because sometimes some things are so tucked into our brains that we Like we don't even realize it, right? So let me put this up there so you guys can see. Right? So this right here. So at my best, and so you guys answer the sentence after. So at my best, my strong suit allows me to, all right. At my best, my strong suit allows me to, whoa, all right. All right. At my best, my strong suit allows me to. When I overuse it, when I overuse it, I sometimes, when I feel stressed, my strong suit becomes, other people may experience me as, other people may experience me as, I have difficulty turning it off when I have difficulty turning it off when, and lastly, I'm afraid that without this quality, people might think I am, just one more minute here. Mhm. Excuse me. So at my best, my strong suit allows me to, when I overuse it, I sometimes, when I feel stressed, my strong suit becomes, other people may experience me as, I have difficulty turning it off when I'm afraid without this quality, people may think I'm, all right. And so think about the person who has been most frustrated with you recently. All right. Could they be, and I'll post it in the group, but could they, like, maybe they're not reacting to your weakness, but just the overuse of one of your strengths. All right. Sometimes a person who frustrates you, or, or that, frustrates us is not always saying like, stop being who you are. It's just like, I need something different from you at this moment. All right. And so a behavior doesn't really change until you become honest about what it's costing you. All right. And so a strong suit may have helped you accomplish a lot. But what does it cost when it takes over? Right. And so I want you guys to consider 4 areas, all right, in terms of where this maybe has cost you. So what is your cost to self? So think about, so the first one is cost to yourself. All right. And so where has this, I'm going to give you four things. So this is one of four. Cost to yourself. What does it cost you? Has it been stress? Has it been burnout? Has it been pressure? Has it been perfectionism? Has it been loneliness? Has it been exhaustion? Has it been fear of disappointing people? Like, what has been the cost to you of this shadow side? The second thing is, what is the cost to my relationships? All right. So what does it cost to me? Stress, burnout, pressure, perfectionism, loneliness, exhaustion, fear of disappointing, examples I gave. What is the cost to my relationships? Maybe it's others are feeling controlled. Maybe it's others don't feel heard. Maybe people stop offering help. Maybe resentment builds. Maybe difficult conversations are avoided. And so relationships stay really surface level. It's a lack of vulnerability. What is the cost to your relationships? Number three, what is the cost to your growth? All right. What is the cost to your growth? And so you avoid feedback, or I might not try things that I think I might fail at. I refuse help. All right. I overthink opportunities. Maybe I stay comfortable, right? Or I repeat the same patterns. I just get stuck in the same circle. What is it? What is the cost of this to your growth? Number four is, what is the cost to your future? Is it missed opportunities? Is it damaged trust? Is it poor boundaries? Is it unnecessary conflict? Is it burnout? Is it maybe it's inability to lead different personality types? All right. That happens with a lot of leaders. So again, what is the cost to your future? Missed opportunities, damaged trust, poor boundaries, unnecessary conflict, burnout, inability to lead others. All right. And I want you to identify, write this down. When my strong suit takes over, the biggest cost is ... When my strong suit takes over, my biggest cost is ... And this isn't about any shame, please. This is about awareness. And awareness can be two things. Awareness without compassion creates shame. Awareness with responsibility creates growth. Okay? And that's what we're focused on here. Awareness with responsibility. And so I'm going to have you guys, we're going to partner up, and each of you is going to have 4 minutes to share. All right. And so the listener's job is not to try to fix, diagnose, teach, or give advice. Your job is simply to listen and let your partner hear themselves. Okay. And so you're going to share my strong suit is blank, right? At its best, it helps me blank. When I overuse it, the cost of that is, and the different choice I could practice is, and so what we went through earlier. Then the listener, all right, and I'll put this up on the TV, but the listener responds only with, what I hear is that your strength is blank. It serves you when blank. It stops serving you when blank. The choice you want to practice is blank. And you're going to switch after, each of you is going to have 3 to 4 minutes. Within 3 minutes, you guys want to switch. All right. So someone keep time on the clock, because that's our max out time to regroup here. All right. So I'm gonna put on John. But for us, fear as human beings can really keep us from getting to where we need to go, and should be going. And fear of the unknown. And when you really understand, why you are the way you are, and like what's made and shaped you to be who you are at this moment, that's where you can have the power to know, oh, well, then I can be like, you can be whatever the heck you want. Cause it's not like, well, I was just born this way. Like, yes, there are things that you're innately good at. Maybe you were born as like a phenomenal opera singer and you're like on America's Got Talent at 4 years old, kicking everyone's butt. Maybe you were born with the ability to jump really high or twist your body, or there's some things that like people are just, born with. And there's things that might be more natural, like to our nature. But there's certain circumstances that happen in our lives, and those characteristics are really identified, like they're strengthened, because something that happened and how we reacted to it gave us some kind of positive feeling, so we kept acting in that way. All right. And so one of my guys, he had shared, he's like, he's one of six kids. Okay. And so he's the second of six. But there was this always like desire to get attention, and so he's freaking hilarious, and his like funny, and that strength of his and making people feel really welcome, his humor, for Mario, that came from being younger and having to find attention. The only way he felt seen was when he was being goofy or silly at home or whatever, right? But for him, it came from like feeling like I had to compete, with five other siblings to get attention. And, he has some very like not fun memories, around that and like where that went to. I shared with you guys about one of our other guys who was the actor, Andres. I shared with you guys about one of our guys who was the protector, a big old football, guy. But there's all these, different stories. Adriano had shared, he lost his dad when he was 10. And that's where his like leadership came from, because he felt he had to be the man of the house, and he really stepped up for his mom and wanted to always be there for him. And so responsibility was another big one of his. And he's like, I had to, because I was the man of the house. He's like, I had this thing of like, I have to take care of my mom. I have to be responsible. Like he never got into any trouble. Like his mom would tell me like he was the best kid ever. But on his side, he's like, I couldn't do that to her. Like she was in so much pain. He's like, I needed to like stay on top of my stuff, like work hard. But it was just because, he wanted to make sure mom was proud. But like shared a lot of, it was really cool, to see that. And I remember when I went through this process, I was like, oh wow, like there's where we want to go in our lives, right? And we're like, okay, I want to go here, I want to be like this, I want that. And then there's the like, oh, but like how the heck do I get there, right? Like how did someone like me get there? Well, you got to where you are, all right, by a series of decisions, whether they were conscious or unconscious. And most of the time, it's a lot of unconscious decisions, all right, where you became retroactive. This seemed right in that moment or whatever. And it's like, oh, that worked. And then your brain gets this dopamine hit and it keeps doing it that way. For my little sister, was crying. Things are like the sensitive. She's really sensitive. And so she's empathetic. She can listen to other people, but also, she like this was something of hers where she'd always like just I'm like trying to see how because I'm like, we're very, very different. But she got attention through her sensitivity. And so that's how she got attention in the house. She was the third of four kids. And so when she was younger, she cried, right? And she was like, oh my gosh, this happened. She got a lot of attention from my parents, and she didn't get attention. She's like, that's how I get attention. So no matter what, that was her go-to, right? Like she would make up stuff, or she's like, like I don't know, do something dumb to me, and I would react because I had attitude problem, and then I'd like hit her, or I tripped her, and then she'd be like, "Ah," and she'd like be going crazy crying, and then I'd look over at her. My parents are like, "Oh my gosh!" And when they were like holding her, she'd look at me and be like, and I was like, "You little bee," like, and she literally do that. She'd be like. And then she'd be like, oh, and I'm like, oh, but that like became a part, and it became a really defining thing of like, oh, Michelle's really sensitive, or we got to take it to and it's something that I'd probably say my parents would still say to this day, right? But it was a coping mechanism, and for her, it was how she got attention, and that sensitivity on the positive side became someone who was also really empathetic and with others, but that became a defining like part of her character, right? And so I'm sharing this because what the process that we went through, and when I went to this personal development, it was about getting to unlocking that next level of you, right? Like you want to get to you 10.0, Caitlin 10.0. What does she look like, right? How does she act? How does she show herself? And we're going to talk about this more. But like, who is that person, right? With that confidence that just like owns that room. And you like can see who that person is. And but it's like, oh, how do I get there? It's like, well, no, what this teaches is like, okay, here's how you got here. You didn't even realize this was happening. You did this with subconscious choices, all right, but it brought you to here. It shaped and molded who you are today. But it's knowing that this isn't just the way you were born. This isn't just how I am. This is how life and life circumstances like really crafted me, right? Like I shaped into this person. But I have the ability to choose to be someone else, right? Like I want to be this person. And for me, it was that person was very uplifting, was very like slow to anger, was very positive, was, finding potential in people versus destroying it. Like that person, and that's who I wanted to be. By the way, that was not the Cathy Kristen that anybody knows today. Okay. That was a very fiery Puerto Rican with a hot attitude that exploded at any time and was so good at making people feel this big. Okay. Real quick. Real quick. I was dang good at it. Okay. And it's not something I was proud of. And I remember I was 24 when I went through this training, by the way. I was, yeah, 24. I just turned 24 when I did this work for the first time. And I realized because I was like, holy crap, like I'm literally turning into my mother, which is the opposite of what I wanted to be. But I had been really, that I focused so much on that. It's like that's who I was becoming versus focusing on who I wanted to be and how would I act in that way. And so then it was like, okay, I got to reprogram myself because I was super explosive. So I had to go, okay, how would, me 10.0 act, in this moment? How would like the best version of me act in this moment? And if you can't see what the best version of you looks like, is there someone you look up to, someone you admire, someone you can go, oh, wow, like this is the type of person that Jordan wants to be like, or, and then he can just embody that characteristic. And one of mine was like definitely how I treated people. And so I remember like right after that event, I'm like, okay, what would Dan do? What would Dan do? Dan was one of my mentors, and he was to me one of the most uplifting and like slow to anger and like so emotionally intelligent, like not phased by anything. It was like, okay, talk to me, right? Like just he was so steady, and I was like, crazy, and he was just like so calm no matter what. And I'm like, God, I want to like be like that. And so when something would happen, I would be like, I'd stop and I'm like, okay, how that's a big part of mine. And if you read my book, I talk about that in the last third and with reprogramming. But it was like, for me, it was like, take a deep breath and ask, what am I actually upset about right now? That was part of my reprogramming process. I was like, I need to, because if not, I'm explosive. And I was like, I'm like, take a deep breath and really ask myself, what am I really upset about right now? Because sometimes it was like, I'm upset I didn't do this better or set this up better, right? It wasn't necessarily, oh, this person did it. It's like, let's tell them this or do this. And I'm like more upset with myself than anything, but you end up taking it out on everybody else. And I had to ask myself. And so this is a conversation, TBD, dot, dot, dot. But I want you guys to really start thinking about this stuff because this conversation is not something that most people start talking about, at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, 25, 30, even for that matter. I see a lot of people in their 50s that are just starting to think about why, like, when I was at that event at Landmark, I think there was three of us under the age of 40 there. The average age in the room was like 52. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like, and everybody's like, oh, you're like such a baby. I was 24 and they're like, good for you. You're like doing this work already. And I felt like I was like late in the game just from having been exposed to Cutco, early with personal development. But it's like most people don't get exposed to this till so much later in life. And if you guys now start taking ownership on really like, okay, let me really understand like what has made me, right? Like that's just a great thing to think about because self-awareness is one of the biggest superpowers to maximum achievement because then it's not just this is just what it is, but that you have power and decision in what happens. We can't control results all the time, but we can control actions that we take and decisions that we make. And it's not always going to go our way, but we can choose to learn, to grow, and to reroute. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that. But thank you guys so much just for playing